Hey there! Before we dive into today's episode, just a quick reminder. If you're looking for tools, inspiration, or training to multiply disciples right where you are, head over to newgenerations.network. You'll also find a link in our show notes to join the community and connect with others on the same journey. And don't forget, you can listen to the Movement series and all our podcasts wherever you get your podcasts.
Welcome, my friend. You're listening to the Movement series, a journey through powerful books that shine light on how ordinary people in every corner of the world are sparking extraordinary movements of the gospel. In this season, we are walking chapter by chapter through Living Fire, a book by my friend Aychi B.R., a story of how God is fanning flames of faith across regions once thought unreachable. These aren't just stories. They're signs of a global movement fueled by obedience, sacrifice, and the Holy Spirit. So, wherever you are, whether you're in the city or the countryside, know this: God is moving and He is inviting you to be part of His story.
Welcome to the Deep Dive, and today we're in Chapter 16 of the Movement series. Our mission is to really get into the source material you provided us, and that is Chapter 16 of the book Living Fire. It's written by an author named Aychi, and it tackles a really fascinating topic, which is supernatural manifestations in disciple-making movements, or DMMs. He's basically reporting on how the gospel is breaking through in some of the most resistant places, unreached people groups, and how often signs and wonders are part of that.
And that context is just so critical. When we talk about DMMs, we are almost always talking about them happening in UPGs, unreached people groups. These are places where there isn't a local church. And the resistance is, well, it's political, it's religious, and it's deeply spiritual.
Right.
So for the people there, the supernatural isn't some kind of, theological sidebar. It's their daily reality. Mm-hmm. We're talking curses, healing, spiritual warfare.
It's just the water they swim in.
Exactly. And Aychi is showing that the gospel has to demonstrate, really, a superior spiritual authority to even get a hearing. It can't just be an argument.
So these manifestations they're like the on-ramp. They're not the destination, but they are the necessary bridge to get someone to even consider the message of salvation.
That's the perfect way to put it. It's the bridge. They break down spiritual barriers and, they give the disciple maker instant credibility. Mm-hmm. And chapter 16, it gets right to the point. Aychi claims a huge percentage, a majority, in fact, of new churches in these DMMs started because of a healing, a deliverance, a dream.
A majority. Not just some, but a majority. That's a statistic we really have to look at.
It is.
It changes everything we think about, standard evangelism methods. So what are the numbers he's reporting?
The data is, it's pretty staggering. Aychi says that miracles, signs, wonders, deliverance ministry, they're present in about 60% of the conversion stories.
60%.
60. Especially for people coming out of other major religions. So this is just an occasional thing. Yeah. It's basically standard practice. Strategically, that means DMMs have to focus on spiritual authority.
Yeah, much more than on, say, complex theological debates. That 60% figure forces a huge shift in methodology. It feels like it would require a total reorientation for the disciple makers themselves.
It absolutely does. And Aychi, he connects this back to the Bible, to Acts 2.22. It's this idea of God confirming His word, His message, by showing up in power.
Meeting people where they are.
Exactly. If they believe in power, God shows ultimate power. If they look for signs, God gives them an undeniable sign.
Okay, 60% is a big abstract number. It can be hard to grasp. Can you bring it to life with that story from the book, the one about the man who held on to a Bible for 2 years?
Yes, that's a perfect example of a breakthrough. So this man, he's in a really resistant community. He gets a Bible, but he's too afraid to read it. The cultural pressure is just too high, so he holds on to it for 2 full years.
2 years? Wow.
Then one night, he falls asleep holding it. And in his dream, he sees the Bible shining, just glowing with this intense light. He wakes up, and that vision is so powerful, so real, he just knows the message has to be true.
So his conversion happens right there, based on a vision about a book he was still afraid to read. But what I find so incredible is what he does next.
Right, and this is the hallmark of a DMM breakthrough, that immediate, unprompted obedience. The moment he believes, all alone in his house, he doesn't wait for a class or for someone to tell him what to do. He goes and immediately tells his wife, his child, his uncle, his uncle's kids. The momentum is just instant because the experience was so personal and so real.
So what was the actual, quantifiable result of that one dream?
Aychi reports that in just 2 months, the man led over 20 people to faith.
20 people in 2 months?
Yes. And he was baptized with his family, and because the model is all about immediate reproduction, he planted a church right then and there. That one supernatural bridge led straight to an indigenous church plant.
That's an incredible story of the miraculous as the starting point. But the book also has stories where it's demanded as proof, right? Where people are essentially testing God.
Yes, this happens a lot with established religious leaders. There's this one story of a man 30 years devout in his own faith who was just fiercely resisting the gospel. Finally, he gets tired of a new believer witnessing to him, and he just issues a challenge, a direct challenge for the Christian God to prove his power.
Okay, so what was the test? What did he demand?
He had this painful sore on his hand from an illness that just wouldn't heal. So he said, okay, if your God is real, have him heal this specific sore. It was a completely measurable, undeniable test. Went to sleep, woke up the next morning, and the sore, it had almost completely disappeared. Not just a little bit, a dramatic overnight transformation.
That brings up a really important point about clarity. In cultures where spiritual claims are common, how do they make sure people know who is responsible for the miracle?
That is a crucial tactical point that Aychi makes. He says the disciple makers are incredibly intentional. They say out loud who they're praying to Jesus Christ, and exactly what they're praying for.
So it's not a generic prayer for healing.
Not at all. It's specific. Jesus, heal this sore. That way, when the healing happens, there is zero confusion about which power, which authority did the work. It completely dismantles the claims of any local spirits or other gods.
So the miracle itself becomes a theological clarification.
Precisely. And they do this for more than just people. Aychi points out they pray for livestock too. For these pastoral communities, their animals are their entire livelihood. So when God heals their sick cattle, that's a demonstration of authority over their entire economic reality. That opens doors that nothing else could.
Let's shift gears a bit to the darker side of this. Persecution. When movements grow this fast, the pushback is often violent. What does Aychi report about supernatural protection?
The accounts are, well, they're pretty extreme. There's one story where a group of young men were hired to burn down a church planter's house.
Okay.
They show up at night with a bomb, an explosive device.
Yeah.
And as they get close to the house, ready to use it, the bomb turns into corn. Right in their hand.
Turns into corn.
Corn. A physical object just changes form.
That's not just a deterrent. That is a terrifying display of a completely different level of power.
Absolutely. The attackers were terrified. They just dropped it and ran. But then in a separate incident, another group was hired to finish the job. They came late, around 1 a.m. But they stopped because they saw a man standing at the gate. And the book describes him as a very handsome, strong-looking man, all dressed in white.
The radiant guard.
Yes. His clothes were just shining in the dark. The attackers just assumed the church planter had hired some kind of powerful guard. They had no other explanation. So they left, convinced he was too well protected.
Which brings us to Daniel's story. This is a high-profile case, an educated leader whose conversion sent shockwaves through the community.
Exactly. Daniel was a respected scholar in his old religion. His conversion was seen as a huge betrayal. So he was kidnapped, they took his passport, and they gave him an ultimatum.
And that was?
Publicly renounce your faith on a live YouTube feed, or you will be killed. The pressure on him and on the whole new movement must have been just immense.
So with no way to physically escape, what did he do?
Aychi says he did the only thing he could. He fasted and he prayed intensely. And the story ends with his captors just becoming afraid.
Afraid of him.
Afraid that they were, in their own words, on the wrong path. So they let him go, just like that. His protection came from an unseen spiritual battle that completely changed the hearts of his enemies.
And that ties directly into deliverance ministry, which you mentioned is a core entry point. Why is dealing with bondage and sickness so fundamental?
Because that's the felt need in so many of these communities. People are desperate for solutions to real, tangible problems, chronic sickness, curses they believe have been on their families for generations, addiction. They've tried everything else. So they come to a disciple maker who just asks a simple question: can I pray for you?
And that willingness to engage their spiritual reality directly, that's the key.
It's everything. God shows up powerfully in those moments. And when Jesus provides the solution to a problem that has tormented a family for a decade, his message of salvation suddenly becomes intensely relevant and believable. And if you look at Aychi's overall perspective in the chapter, the focus is never really on the miracle itself. They're just the evidence. His point is that, and I'm quoting here, miracles, signs, and wonders beautifully adorn the gospel message.
They're the ornamentation. They make the core message impossible to ignore.
Especially in cultures that are already highly tuned in to spiritual power.
And Aychi brings this all back to the Bible, to the original mandate from Jesus. He told his disciples, as you go, proclaim the good news, heal the sick, and cast out demons. It's all one package.
That's the strategic conclusion. That's it right there. These signs are the bridge. They open the door so people can hear the gospel, yes, but also experience God's power, taste his love, and see clearly who Jesus is. He's the only one who can solve their deepest problems.
That was a powerful deep dive into Chapter 16 of Living Fire and the role of the supernatural for the Movement series.
And before we go, here's a final thought for you to consider, based on everything Aychi argues. Given this strong affirmation of Matthew 10.7, proclaim, heal, cast out demons, what's one practical change you would make in your own ministry approach this week if you truly believe that these beautiful adornments were essential for success right where you are?
Something to think about. Thank you for joining us for the deep dive. We'll see you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this chapter of the Movement series. As we've seen in Living Fire, the kingdom of God doesn't grow through comfort. It grows through courage. And the same Spirit who is moving in these stories is ready to move through you. If your heart is stirred, don't let it stop here. Visit newgenerations.network to get resources, tools, and training. Join the global community walking in this same fire. Link in the show notes. Until next time, keep the fire burning.
Thanks for listening to the Movement series. To find more episodes and explore tools that help you multiply disciples, visit newgenerations.network. And be sure to check the show notes or our bio for a link to join the community. We'd love to connect with you. Finally, subscribe and follow wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss an episode. See you next time.